Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life.
And Professor Sunreis Productions!
Hello class, Professor Sunreis here. In today's class we're taking a look at my Bystial Dragon deck, and we are taking a look at how I side with it. So most importantly, this will be about the side deck, but you will also get lots of information about the deck in general. My theory behind certain cards will be elaborated a little bit in this video, but most importantly, it will be my side deck patterns against Tearlaments, Sprite, and Floowandereeze. These are the most common matchups for now, and which is what the side deck is all about, but I will also go over a few cute interactions the side deck has with different other cards. So without further ado, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave some feedback down in the comment section below, and let's get right into the video. So let's get into the actual video. First of all, we will go over each role each card has in this deck, because I feel like it's very important to know that when it comes to side decking. So for the starters of the deck, we have, of course, the normal summons and the chaos base and the two desires. I never side these out going first, because the main deck, of course, is built to be as good as possible going first, because we want to do that as often as possible. For going second, you can side out a few of these, most importantly because 3 Magnet also become starters for the deck, so you actually increase the amount of starters. A card like Desires becomes worse going second, because the theory with is that this is a control deck, of course. So having a card which gives me one more card than the opponent has is, in theory, an automatic win if everything goes as smooth as possible, because we will keep trading 1 for 1, and then I will have 1 card more than the opponent. So I side out these going second, because the theory doesn't apply going second, because going second we will just probably draw into hand traps, which will not do enough in the opponent's turn, so you don't need those. And the Black Metal Dragon can be a little bit iffy against Flunder. So that's that. The engine requirements for those, you will almost never side any of these out, just because they are engine requirements for the deck, and this is where lots of your ceiling is. So you don't really want to get rid of those. Bystial engine, pretty self-explanatory. So for your main engine, you would probably only ever side out 1 to 2 cards, depending what these do. In this case, it will be regained, just because the main focus on this is, of course, going first to establish these, but going second, the focus is more on making your opponent lose most of their resources, and then just keep grinding with like a Magnamet and stuff like that. So you don't need this 2 copies of these, especially because you also kick out the Desires, and they're just not good enough to hard draw going second. Going first, they're fine. Bystials do have this unique aspect about them, where all of these, by the way, I max out on all of them, it can't be seen right now, all of these also act as hand traps, so sometimes you will have to side out a few of them if they don't apply to a certain matchup. But other than that, it is pretty self-explanatory, and a few cards will just never be sided out. And then for the hand traps, of course, this is where most of the siding will be, just because these are your defensive cards, and they are tagged for the meta and tagged for certain decks. And if you play against a deck where they just don't apply, you will want to side them out. As you can see, I am still on the 2 Ghost Bell. I tried out a lot of different stuff, mostly Skullmaster and Droll, but I just didn't like him as much as Ghost Bell, just because Ghost Bell can stop Bystials, in my opinion. It is the most optimal card. So that's it for the main deck, what we have there to side out. Let's take a look at what we have to side in. For siding in, we have the Gamma package, we have some back row hate, and we have Talents, and we have Nibiru. So these are the stuff which we can play with. I was thinking about cutting the Nibiru, but I honestly just was unlucky with it, I feel like, where I've just drawn it a lot for turn or something like that. But in theory, it is still a very strong card, and probably one of the strongest hand traps currently. So let's take a look. Against Tearlaments, for going first, let's take a look at the anti-cards. We talked about that we don't side out any of our starters for going first, so we don't have to care for that. These are our anti-cards. Let's see what we actually want to side in against it. So against Tearlaments going first, it actually is quite simple. I don't side a lot for going first in general. It is just the 3 Nibiru. Let's see what could be the worst cards to side out against Tearlaments. Honestly, against Tearlaments for going first, it is quite simple. If you take a look at all of these hand traps, Ghostblood can stop any tier name, it can stop a Shuffler, it can stop a Bystial, so this is one of the best ones. Valor and Imperm are really good because they stop the most important card and get colors. And then Ass is just very lackluster. Well, it can be very good, and it's our only way of interacting with the Shizu cards in the graveyard, the millers. I don't think it is as necessary. You can just make my opponent commit a little bit and then hit them with the nib. So for going first against Tearlaments, I just side up the 3 Ashes and put in the 3 Nibiru's. Our desires as that much of a starter for the main engine. So you see we only have 5 cards. So we still need to side out one of our defensive slots, and in this case it's of course going to be the 1 of Ash. Also really good, I have 1 foot Ash and 2 normal Ash, so it always cleans that I can side out this ugly one. So these are the 6 cards I side out. Reason for that is because I really just want to have defensive cards against that deck going second. If you can take a look at this, these are 10 hand traps with that's 13. With the 9 Bystials, that's 21, 22. And then with the talents, it's 25, right? 9 plus 12, yeah, 25. So we have a lot of defensive cards and a lot of going second cards against that deck, which is very important in my opinion, because you really need to stop them before they get going with this deck, just because the ceiling of our deck is not as big. So this is my side plan against Tearlaments, going first, side in the 3 Nibiru for the 3 Ash, going second, side out these 6 cards, and side in the 3 Nib and the 3 Talents. Let's take a look at Sprite, because this is where it gets very interesting in my opinion. So my side decking plan against Sprite is actually quite unique, I would say, because I always, at least for now, in my testing against current Sprite iterations, is that I always make them go first. Reason for that is that Gamma is a really insane card against the deck. Of course, it can just automatically win the turn against them. If they start with the Beaver and they have like Beaver Blue, they cannot play through 1 Gamma, so it's an automatic turn stop unless they have exactly Beaver plus starter. So Gamma is a really good card against it. And also, the only really scary deck and unfair thing Sprite can do against this deck is the Shifter. We don't really care about Toad that much. We can handle it. But Shifter is just an automatic win for them. So I really want to have the most consistent way of stopping Shifters. And that is the only thing that we can do against that, of course, is the Gamma. So I always want to have a Gamma in my deck. And then the problem becomes that Gamma can brick going first, and I don't want to be like in a scenario where I draw a Gamma and I cannot make it use, and then I have 1 less card against them, and then they just can straight up OTK me. We also have the added benefit that if we make them go first, and they don't they expect to go second, a lot of times they will actually start up the swap frogs and stuff like that. Just to make space for more anti-cards, and then they could in theory brick on them, and they just have a lower ceiling in general, making the board even easier to crack, because we don't actually have a hard time cracking the board. So I've been faring off very good with that, though current Sprite trends actually go away from the Toad package and they just play the Gamma Burst OTK stuff and the end of Anubis, so this might change in the future, and you still have a very good time going first against the deck, just because Seal plus Druid's Worm and Branded Beast is just so much removal that I can't really answer that much removal. So we do have a good time going first. It's just that Shifter is very annoying for me, so I currently run with this, and it's been actually working out quite good in my opinion. And then I also want to put in the Talents, because I'm going second, and Talents is like the best card is going second in the meta right now. So we need to make space for 7 cards. And these 7 cards are, as usual, the 2 Desires, because we still don't have that much to draw into apart from the Talents, so the Desires is not as necessary. The 1 Regained, of course, we don't have the Desires. I side out 1 Druid's Worm, because the Bystials are usually just dead going first, so they don't act as hand traps, and they're not as necessary to draw into multiples, and Druid's Worm is the worst one for engine reasons, because it doesn't get your engine rolling whatsoever, so I just side out 1 of them, and it's been going great with that. 2 Black Metal Dragon, the same reason. The Magnemite isn't starter in this deck if we have at least 1 hand trap, so you don't need as many starters. And then lastly, 1 Valor, because it's the worst hand trap on the Shifter. So I still want to be prepared for that. All of the other hand traps, especially Ghostball, because it can just stop the Toad play by itself, are very strong in my opinion. And all the other ones, apart from Ghostball, can still hit the Gigantic, which is the most important one, because then we can use Magnemite and stuff like that in our turn and put an insane amount of pressure on the Sprite player immediately when they start their turns. So these are the 7 cards I side out against that deck, and I put in the 3 Gammas and make them go first all the time, at least for now. Maybe I'm going to change it up in the future, but currently I side out these 7 and I put in these 7, and it's been working quite well, making them go first. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. What the fuck do I do against Flunder? I'm still not 100% happy with that. Luckily, Flunder is not as popular as it could be. And the deck itself plays quite a big amount of hand traps already. So defensive cards wise, and the ratio to defensive and engine cards were actually quite good. But it's still very hard to get into the game, of course, against them, and they can just sack you hard. So what I want to put in is 2 Lightning Storms to hit Barrier Statue, hit M-Pen. These are very important and annoying against me. 3 Twin Twisters, it hits the Field Spell and the Trap. These are also very annoying. And then 3 Gamma, just because it's overall a very generically strong hand trap against them. And it also hits the Flunder, the Shifter. This is, by the way, for going second for now. We will talk about going first later. Because going second is, in my opinion, the most brutal part against the deck. And then, so these are 9 cards. We need to side out 9 cards, and this is where it actually gets quite unique, because I actually side out 3 Druid's Worm. If you remember my theory early on the video, this, while it is of course engine piece, and it is a very good card to have in multiple scenarios, it is just completely dead against Flunder as a hand trap of all, and its generic effect of sending a special summon monster is also completely dead. So this is just a level 6 body, which can break your hand. So I really don't want that to be in my hand. Of course, the 2 Ghost Bell, it can only stop as 3, so this is next to dead in this matchup as well. So we don't need that. The 1 Branded we gained because the game plan going second is not as necessary. We just want to stop them. So we don't need to establish this as soon as possible. 2 Black Ice Metal Dragon, because the normal summon is not over 1k, so we cannot normal summon it and then run over the Barrier Statue and continue playing. So this as a normal summon is just not that worth it. Even though Magnemite is not a starter against the deck, I still just side it out, because you need to see anti-engine and then just have 1 starter and maybe play like Bystial Beatdown and stuff like that, completely kick them out of their engine. This is the main way to win against this deck. And also 1 Chaos Base. This is like a forced side out. Problem is that we do still have the Desires in, just because we have quite good amount of cards to draw into now with a Lightning Storm and Twin Twister. And then ratio-wise, it just becomes weird to side out 1 Magnemite or 1 Serenity, because then we only have 5 Bystials plus Desires, which is not enough. You could also side out 1 Seyfried, but it's just weird. You could side out 1 Desires, but Desires is probably one of the better cards against that deck. And you don't ever want to side out any of these, because these are the best cards against that deck we have. So we really want to have those. Other cards apart from this Chaos Base that you could side out would be 1 Desires and maybe 1 Serenia or 1 Magnemite, probably a Magnemite, because Serenia is just the strongest Bystial against Flunder. But for now, I am on the 1 Chaos Base, because while it's a starter, it also doesn't play under the statue, so I'm not really a fan of it against that matchup particular. So for Flunder going second, I don't even know why I started with the going second game plan. It's just how it is right now. We really want to fit in these, so we will just have to side out lots of our engine pieces, just because this is the way how Flunder works. Our engine is not as good against it, but we have lots of space for defensive cards and anti-cards, so we just put in a shit ton of them, side out everything out of our engine which is bad against them or worthless in the case of these, and then we should be okay to go. This might look a little weird, I know, but we are starting the other way around this time for Flunder going first, just because it is how the deck works. So against Flunder going first, we need to side out these dead cards. We need to get rid of them. How do we do that? Well, we put in the Gamma package because it stops Shifter, so that's a really good pickup, because we cannot play on a Shifter whatsoever. And then most of the time we'll Shifter in Stamper Phase to play around Talents, so it's always going to be alive. And then this are only 4 cards. These are 5. We do put in 1 Twin Twister. If you did take a look at the side deck, it is the only card going first which is actually alive against them. So we have, of course, the Twisters and the Lightning Storms. The Twisters are decent, I guess. And 3 Nibiru probably never comes up, and 3 Talents only comes up if they let us do that. But most of the time, like I said, they will do that under Shifter. So Talents only comes up if they play around Gamma. And at this point, they most of the time will play around a Shifter, not a Gamma. They will play around a Talents, but not a Gamma, like that. So Twin Twister is the only card which is alive, and it is not bad. Hitting the Field Spell basically makes it so that this deck dies to 1 Disruption, and most importantly, it also makes it so that they cannot play in your turn nearly as often, apart from a hard-drawn trap. So I really like the Twin Twister against that, and Gamma is just overall the most generic card against this matchup. So these were the 3 most important matchups for now. Honestly, these are the only matchups I feel like which are necessary. Against everything else, you do have generically good cards in your side deck, like Talents and Nibiru are so good against random rogue decks for going second in general. Gamma the same. Against random back row decks, you do have the Twin Twisters and the Lightning Storms, so everything which is like Exorcister, everything which searches Necro Valley, these cards are super valuable against those. So in my opinion, the side deck is built pretty well for now, at least for the foreseeable future until February, I think, where the Kashtira stuff comes out, where things might change, but probably not that big. So overall, I'm very happy with how the side deck works out. I hope you guys could learn something from this side decking X course for this deck. Like I said, against Tearlaments, you just need the Nibirus, most importantly, and going second the Talents. Against against Sprite, we put in the Gammas and the Talents and make them go first. And against Flunder, the most important aspect is to get dead cards out of your main deck and fill in any of the side decks cards which are somewhat remotely playable against them, like Gammas and Twin Twisters for going first. It seems weird, but it actually works. Just because we already have 9 good cards against them in the main deck, we are usually good to go. And our engine is actually not that bad against them, just because dragons are bigger than birds, and also Branded Beast on the field spread is really good. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Class is dismissed. You guys are free to leave. Professor Sunreis out. Peace.